So you'd probably maybe pass in a JSON file and then parse that JSON file, because in here you can concatenate this and just say, okay, now give me another one like that. And then put this there. Okay. And then that would be a little bit deeper. And then sadly, I'd have to go one more. Let me show you how this works, just so you wouldn't have to research too much. But let's say if I'm looking for this one, the first one's going to be student ID. Okay, student ID equals 2. Now I'm going to have kind of errors because these aren't variables. And then the next one is from there, scores. Okay, and I want the first one, and it's an array. So I think that would work. That's something you'd have to look at. Maybe I'm wrong there. No. This is, so you really could do, yeah. So from then we do scores.type, because I think that's what it is, right? Scores, yeah, an array, because then type. So your dot notation would work. And then here would be quiz. Okay, I can't spell quiz, Q-U-I-Z. And then from there, that would work to give me that layer. And then on my update, I would have to do something like var update equals. From there, I could probably do, so it's going to be update dot set. I mean, with all this up here in the way as well, right? Because let's be this. Okay. I hate when people tell you things and you really like, what? Want to see something? So I'll go ahead and show you. And then here I can do dot notation. So scores dot root dot score, and then my value of whatever the value is. That should work, right? And even if it doesn't, look online, but that should give you an idea. Control KC is comment. Yeah. So that should give you an idea of how passing an array, but you'd have to be able to multiple of these, and you'd have to figure that out. So what I would do is I'd pass in a JSON and then parse that JSON, and then you could figure out how deep it is. And you'll see passing in JSON when we do the insert. Then set it, okay? But again, you'd have to dynamically build that. Way much more time than I want to spend on this. Okay, so, I mean, at least today. So, because we're almost done, and I want to be done. So now we need our delete. Okay, our delete, though, is going to be filters. So let's, before we tell it to do it, let's copy this. And because it's going to create the keys for us. And then here, I'll say, create method. Okay, again, there's a shortcut key for that. That's one of the powerful things about using JetBrains is their shortcut keys. But I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember them because I've been using Python so much. I think it's Control K or maybe Alt K. I do a lot of stuff on Mac. But anyway, you can come up here and look at your key references. And I recommend doing that if you use this a lot. And just, you know, be a master of this tool because it does so much. I prefer this tool over Visual Studio, and I've been using Visual Studio since I was a kid. All right. So delete, first thing we need, let's do our try catch first this time. That way you don't have to move things around. And var, oops, equals, oh no. So there was a shortcut key I didn't know existed. Oops. Okay, and then what we need to do is return deletion, delete. Well, we'll just say delete is complete. It rhymes anyway. All right, so now for here, you guessed it, we got to do our connection. Let's grab it from, well, delete should be last anyway, right? CRUD. So let's put it below the bottom. Okay, and now let's just go ahead and grab this because that should be the same. And I know we're going to need a filter because we're going to know what we want to delete. So let's go ahead and grab those. We'll put that there. Okay, and notice we didn't have to rename it because we took it from this one. So that's great. Now on the delete, believe it or not, is a lot simple. simpler. So once we have our filter, we want to say, what is the filter? So the key to the delete command is going to be collection dot delete. So you want to think about your collection as what you're doing your options on: insert, update, delete, right? So those are the things that that you want to look at. But we're going to delete one, and the delete one is going to be our filter. And wait, go away, this filter. Okay, and that's it. So that is completely it. Now we're done. We did all of our Mongo actions. So let's talk about them real quick, and then we'll jump into Javelin, right? So let's get rid of this one because we don't need this one. So we did all the CRUD functionalities: get, well, technically, well, you get it right. Create, update, delete. Bad video of me not keeping things in order, but that's fine. So what we had to do is we had to inherit from the native activity, which comes from the common, not the one that I had before. In fact, I probably could just remove it. Extensions, let's just say delete, and we're good there because we don't need that one. What we need is this one. And then what that did was we created our arguments that's going to show up. You saw that, right? So we have one for URL, our database, our collection, the action we want to perform. Okay, so that the reason I said this because that's not part of Mongo. That's just being a good developer. And then save data. I'm going to show you how to pass that in. Then we need to filter a key, filter a value. We want to update a key, we want to update a value. Again, you want to figure out how to do this dynamically, not one at a time. But again, the beautiful thing about Javelin, you could make it a loop, right? And just pass in your values and do it that way. And that would work perfectly fine. Well, not the array. Sorry, the array wouldn't work. I guess it would. Anyway, you can be smart about it. So, and then you can return your data. Now, the only method you have to override, other than the parameters in here, is the execute. Okay, the execute, you declare your parameters as whatever they've been passed in. And technically, you didn't have to do it this way. You could have just used these down here, but I did it this way to make it more visual. And then we do our action, our insert. You know, we're passing in the variables, our get, our update, our delete, and of course our default, which does nothing. You could put an error message here, return it to say something like, you know, action not supported, you know, because if somebody says, hey, I want, I started insert, they say, give me a put. Okay, well, put will fall through because we're not declaring it. And then whatever value gets fed into data, we're returning that to our value, okay? I guess I could show you how to do that real quick. Data equals method not supported. Okay, there you go. And that's what you got to do. And then your default would say, oh, method not supported, and that gets returned back to Javelin. Now, to your CRUD functionalities. Okay. Now, to be clean, the ReSharper's even telling me that. I misspelled that. To be clean, I would make these internal, not public. But the cool thing is, if you know how classes work to test this, and I'll show you my other one in a few minutes, you can actually build another project, a command line tool, inherit this DLL, and then you can just execute these and test them, right? Let's do a clean code real quick. So let's do, where's my clean code? Clean format and run, because I don't like how that looks. Oh, sorry. I gotta select everything, code, and then clean code, and then just say run. There we go. Reason being because it makes it nice and pretty for us. So here, create, once you make your connection, the key is just passing this document, and that's kind of tricky. It's really just a JSON file. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that here shortly. And that's our create and insert one onto the collection. Get has a little bit more just because we put these in here. Again, I don't think you have to do that, but the key to that, you don't know what this object is. Okay, this is also a good way to kind of help protect you, because what if the object is a JSON file, right? Or something that has to be parsed. So you could do that this way. And the only thing this really does, once you create your filter, is you do a find. That's it. On the update, same thing, create the filter. You create an update, which is your key value that we want to update. So I'm going to find the method, and then I want to update the value of that key. Okay. And again, your collection update. delete, same thing as the filter, and delete. Okay, and that's it. So let's save it. And let's just go ahead and, again, I like to clean this folder. In .NET, there is a clean folder. I'm pretty sure there's one in here that I haven't found. Again, I don't really, probably just in today's the most I've used Writer. I usually do everything in Python these days, but that's okay. So what I'm gonna do is build. Okay, build is going to give me some new DLLs. I'm going to grab this one, copy. I'm going to go to Javelin. We do have our extension, so let's go remove it. So manage extensions. Remove this one. We're just removing that one. And we're going to close. And then we'll get it. I physically like deleting it, so I know that I don't overwrite. And it has sometimes Windows is just tricky like that because it's like, oh, you overwrote it, and then you didn't really, so your changes didn't go in effect. So there we go. And now we'll go back to Javelin. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that one. You've seen me do this 100 times. So browse. Hopefully, nope, keeps taking me there. It's not where I want to go. Let's go to our extensions. Okay, we're almost done. We just got to do some testing. And I'm going to be honest with you, it may error out, but I think you get the concept of what's going on. So MongoDB. The only reason I say that is because we did this one pretty fast. Import. And then we've got to close and reopen, and then it should be there, and then we can start building. So there's our Mongo. So we're going to create a new one, and we'll just call this test 2. We're going to drop that into place. Now we're going to actually have some fun. So we're going to name this one. First thing we're going to do is create. Okay. So with create, let's go get our cheat file because there's a lot of it. So what I did to create is when you go here, you can actually download one of these. So export collection. If you have this selected, then it's going to download that one. I don't want the ID, but I do want the rest of this. So I'll select my output, select file, call it grades 2 because you can see where I downloaded it yesterday, and then export, and then show file. It just goes to the folder, which is kind of weird. So we'll just say close and then close, and it's right here. And I'm going to open it up with Visual Studio Code because it does a good job of cleaning up JSON. Now in here, the only thing I did was I deleted all these others, right? So I just say drop to the bottom. And this appears to be an array. I don't think we need an array because we're only doing one. But if I go to the bottom and get rid of that, that's there. And now just make some changes. Okay, that's all I did. But the one that I did was this one. Oh no, I didn't do it there. But we'll look at it over here because I copied it over here because I didn't want to redo it. So it's right here. So what I did was I took a user that I know didn't exist and I did some actions on it. So let's go back and look, make sure we don't have one that exists. And then if we go to training, grades, again, you can do, these are the default ones that come with Mongo whenever you install it. So what we want to do, let's do a little filter, student ID, that should pop up for me, it did. And we want to, let's see if there's a, oops. I don't think there's a 2. Okay, there's not. So we're going to use this as our ID. So I'm just going to put this over in place. And that's good. So what we're going to do is click here. And let's try to get a little real estate. We'll be able to get too much. So create our filter key we don't need. So let's just go down the list. Okay, so we're going to do an insert. Okay, we're not doing a filter, so we don't need student ID equals whatever. So what we do need, filter keys, we're not doing a filter because this is a create. We're not doing this one. Our action to perform is going to be an insert. Our collection is grades. Okay. Our database is sample training. Again, if you don't know this, hopefully this is stuff you already know, but it's just right here, right? Okay, that's database, that's your collection, sorry. Yeah. So, and then here, this is our connection string. And again, if you don't know that, when you first open it up, it says, where do you want to connect? There's a button that says edit. You can just edit it. Data 2. Well, let's just go see if, I don't think I have a variable created. I don't, so we're just gonna call it data, not data 2. So let's go back up here. Our return is data. Now, we don't have an update here and we don't have an update there because we want whatever JSON we pass in to be our golden record. Now, this is just JSON, okay? The trick is I had to double quote the double quotes because it's a string. Now, you can, again, I do it in the video for how to call an API. You can parse a JSON object, right? And that's what I would recommend doing. It would just make it so much easier than this hardcode stuff because you're going to want to build this dynamically. So wherever your JSON file is coming from, have it as a J object, parse it to a string, and then just pass it in, and you wouldn't have to do all this. In fact, I might have done that on the other Mongo video. But what we want to do is this is our save data. Okay. Again, to make it think that it's a string, unfortunately, JSON has to have this as a string value, and that's a string value. I had to escape that by using double quote the double quotes. Okay. So what we're looking at is our student ID. We're adding a score. We're adding all the other stuff, including the arrays that makes up that file. And now what we're going to do is put a log in here so we can capture our return. So let's control flow log. And this is going to be our data. So we'll just say data equals, just so it's easier to see. And then we call this data. Okay, that's simple. Now, fingers crossed. Let's hope this works. Desktop, test flows. We'll just grab this one. That's fine. Replace it. And let's run it verbose and cross your fingers. Okay, it says we were complete. Let's just do a find. There's our document. How cool is that? So if I compare it to our JSON, we have our student ID. We have our exam score is 49. Notice these are kind of floats. 18. Our homework and homework. We have two homeworks. Was it? Yeah, there's two homeworks. Okay, cool. Again, I just exported one, changed some numbers, and imported it in. So now our next CRUD functionality is read. So let's go ahead and copy these two. Okay, and we'll bring them down to here. Now I don't want to run create again. So we're going to set this to the side. And we're going to read. Okay. Now for our read, we shouldn't have to change too much because that's the reason I like to copy and paste because it keeps all that in there. This is not imported. We're not going to do that, but we do need our filter. So let's go see what I grabbed for a filter. I think it's just student ID like this. I'm not even going to waste time because I know it is. So filter key, which is here, and our value is this big number here. If I go through and find read or get, yeah, it's right here. Notice I used a different one yesterday, but that's it. So I'm passing in only the filter ID and the filter key that I want to read from. So let's go ahead and save, and let's run verbose and complete. And we didn't get data. Why didn't we get data? Grades. Oh, you know why? Oh my goodness, because we didn't change this. That probably errored out, which is totally fine because there was nothing there to do. So if I go over here and hit refresh, let's do a find again. Notice it didn't change. Okay, so that's fine. So now let's do it again. It's very important. Change your method or your action. I guess we could call it a method. Now start. Let's do the proposed logging, and now we have our data. There we go. So it returned her back to us. Now again, from there, you could write it to a log. You can parse it out because it's JSON, but I can tell it's mine because that's why I put that in there. And it did return back the right user. So, yeah. Okay, I was thinking the 101, but that was yesterday. So now what's next? The next one is going to be, let's see, update. So let's copy these over here. Let's delete that one. Bring read over here. And what we're going to do, though, just for kicks and giggles, is start building out a workflow. And this should be update. Update. Okay. Now for an update, we have to actually tell it what we want to update. So let's go back over here. Again, I'm going to cheat. Now update is here. The student ID and all that's fine. Our collection, our database. What I'm going to do is update this class ID. Just make it easier to see. So update key. is going to be class ID. Has to be a string. Our value, though, is an object. So let's go see what our class ID. Our class ID is 480. So why don't we make it, what did I do up here? 483. That's fine. Just grab it. That way if it has a reference somewhere, then I don't think it does. I don't think that matters, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and, oh, see, I almost messed up again. Update. Okay, so let's save. Wouldn't be a big deal. I just wouldn't know how to read that because it doesn't exist. So reverse logging. It says our update has changed. Let's go look at Mongo. Now notice it's 480. Let's go ahead and just do a find refresh, I think. Yep, there we go. Now it's 483. How cool is that? All right, so last one, the deadly one. So let's grab these, copy, paste. We'll just bring those down here. And let's bring these down over here. Oh, sorry, let me break the point. There we go, that makes it easier. Okay, now we'll bring these down here. Okay, and then this one needs to be a delete. Now, the good news is, if I, oh wait, I'm sorry, this first. The good news is the delete is the same as the, seriously? Basically, I just got to pass it a filter. I don't know what this thing's doing. It's going crazy on me. Here we go. So, delete. Now, over here, we're going to make this one a delete. And to prove it, I'm just going to do it all caps, if I spell it right. Okay. And then we may do one that doesn't work, and just so you can see the message it comes back. Now, here, return data. We got our class ID. These aren't important because we're not looking at the update methods. What we are looking at is the filter methods, which is already there. Student here. So we want to delete this message. Oh, I have to pass in something. Here we go. So, and then that's it. Now you could, this whole error about passing in something, you could probably write your code to say if it's null or whatever, not make it required. To make something not required, you just, pretty common sense, take this out. That's how you gotta do. Okay, but let's see what happens. Cross your fingers, we got our delete in there, 102. So we should be deleting where student ID equals 102. Okay, verbose logging. And just like that, it's complete. Let's go see what's going on over here. And let's just do a find. And now it's gone. How cool is that? So we just did a complete CRUD functionality. What I'm going to do is one last thing. And I'm going to be stupid. And I'm going to say, let's create it. Let's read it. Let's update it. And then let's delete it. Okay. So let's go ahead and save. That's a complete CRUD functionality workflow. And I'm just going to say verbose logging so we can see all of our messages. And there we go. Now let's copy all this to a notepad so we can see. Okay. Now if I go over here and refresh, it's not there because we ran the delete. Still not there, 102. But if I look here, here's our save data, okay, which turned out fine because our read data returned it. All right, we're looking for this. And then if I come down to our next one's going to be update. So our update worked. Now you could return the data on an update. That'd probably be something wise. Like you could call the update and the get together and return the data. That way you can see your update change. And then of course the last one is your delete, and the delete worked too. Excuse me, a lot of talking. Now that was a lot of work, but we did it in less than an hour. Now, it doesn't help that I did it last night, so I worked out all the bugs. The biggest gotchas, so let's start. You could actually use this MongoDB as your reference, because there's a lot of things in here. I did. It's just MongoDB, go to development, right? Or just Google developing, right? So it shows you every command that you can do, which is a lot. But if you notice, this is drivers, C#, and then what you can do with it, okay? So, and then just find it, because you'd want to make this way more active than just this. This is just the basics. And then the other thing is go to the, I have it on my desktop somewhere because I knew I wanted to show you. That's the API, yeah, this one. Go here, just log into to support.com, go to documents, or however you get there. If need be, I'll put this in a link in the chat. I mean, not chat, but in the video, whatever, YouTube. That way you can get to those two. and follow this. The only catch is setting it up was very tricky, but this works for all flows, right? Maybe I want to build something totally different than just a Mongo. But I was looking at the Mongo video last time. There was a lot of views, like 1.2K. But the problem is what I realized is what I'm doing is I'm using the import method and I'm calling batch files. This is a true plugin. So what that means is I could use this plugin over and over. We used it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. That's no different than me coming over here, grabbing it and dragging it over. And the good thing is once you set it up, you can share this with other people, right? So, and you can include it in other flows. It truly is a plugin. So maybe I want to build another custom plugin to send me a text message. I don't know. Anything you can imagine you can do in C#, or I think it only supports C# and Visual Basic maybe. But the example was in C#. I know C#. I always joke and say we don't program in Visual Basic because we're adults. But I know C# very well. For those who don't know my background, I've been programming since the 80s. And I started with C++ and C, and then later went into C# and .NET. And so my background has a lot of Microsoft to it. Later on, I went into Java, and then of course Python. And then I've been doing databases ever since back then as well, because you can't build an application without some form of a database. Now, if you really want to know my history, just look me up on LinkedIn, right? Just, you know, if you need this, I'll put it in the chat too, but this tells my resume, blah, 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 blah. But that's beside the point. My point is, I'm digressing now. My point is if you know C#, if you know programming languages, you can build your own custom plugins or extensions to do whatever you want them to do inside of Javelin. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to cut this now because it's very long. If anybody has any questions, because there was a lot, please watch the video. This is just a one stringer. Maybe I'll put it up on GitHub or something. But I'd rather you try it on your own because there's so much more you could do with this. For an example, for the update, passing in an array. And passing in the array would be no different than how I passed in this one, right? You would just parse it as an array. And then instead of passing this in as a string, maybe passing it as a J object, right? Or J array. And I have videos out there on how to do stuff like that. So that's it. Hope this was helpful. Wow, what a video. I'll maybe try to cut it in parts. It just depends on how YouTube flips out about it. And hopefully I don't have to go back and make any mistakes because this is probably one of the longest videos I've done. All right. Hope it was helpful and see you next time.